I'm here with Gene, who's got a big story about everything that's going on with Renaissance here at ISTE, and I've been by your booth. I've seen like a lot of activity.
There's a lot of activity.
People roaming around, and I've been a huge admirer of what I like to say is advanced digital curriculum.
Okay.
I call it the good stuff, like the stuff that actually has true animation, true pathways. It's almost gamified, and it's pre-testing, post-testing, giving you the right level as a kid.
Parts,
And as an aid, a lot of people have been treating it as remedial intervention type stuff. It's like extra. I think it should be core. And I'm very vocal about that. But I want to know kind of what's happening now with you guys and what's going on.
Well, I think a couple of things are happening here at ISTE. ISTE is kind of our formal part of our rebranding that we've gone through. So we've had a lot of growth. Looking from the outside, people could think we're on a buying spree because we've had, I think, 8 acquisitions in 5 years. But I think, the part that you're really referring to is, we've really amped up our instructional resources with Nearpod coming into the family.
Oh, wow,
so, the Nearpod side of the booth is just off the scale. But, Renaissance, we were historically assessment and practice. And we didn't really venture too much into the instructional space. But, once you give an assessment, somebody's going to say, well, what do you have something I can do? And what's the next step? What do I do? And that's why Nearpod was the perfect addition. So for us, ISTE is the formal complete out there rebranding of our company because so many parts have come in. So, Nearpod came in, Mayan a few years ago. We acquired some smaller companies in Starphonics. Well, it became Starphonics. It was Keyphonics. It could look like a buying spree. It's not. It's very strategic. We are rounding out our portfolio and our ecosystem, just kind of slowly adding like core things that schools need to get the job done around literacy and math. And so, new brand identity for us, new colors, new images. Our tagline is see every student, because that's what we want our tools to be able to do. To help teachers see every student and then have a course of action based on that. So we're out there publicly with the brand here at ISTE. We had a big party last night at the Art Museum, which was a great fun. And I've been around, so for me, this is year 17 with Renaissance.
Holy cow.
I started with a much smaller company.
That's forever, and you're only 12, so how did that happen?
Thank you. You must have a really good filter on the camera there. But it's exciting for me because I started with a much smaller company. We were primarily the Accelerator Reader Company. We were based solely almost in Wisconsin. We were, under 1,000 employees. Now we're worldwide, over 2,000, many more branches to the family, and it's all exciting because really, there is momentum building, there is energy building, there are exciting things happening with us right now.
Yeah, I love it. Now, okay, so question, do you also sell to the consumer markets?
Like direct
Straight
to
up
consumer?
Subscription direct to consumer?
No, generally working through schools, charter school networks, those types of things. We're looking at that market in terms of the licensure for it. It's a lot harder for us, so it's not a direct to consumer kind of thing right now.
Yeah, because they want everything to be 50 cents.
Yeah, well, and just even, a lot of things are, so in the Mayan Digital Library, for example, we've got the books licensed. They're not ours, so figuring out those fee structures on the one-offs gets somewhat complicated for some of the tools that we have.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and then there's renewals on the copyrights and blah blah and blah blah, and it's like a nightmare. Yeah, I get it. Well, the reason I'm asking is because our research showed that going into 2023, the consumer markets were outspending all schools in America by like $8 billion. And it's a disintermediation moment. They all know they're losing kids to homeschooling and every alternative known to mankind. And there's been 5 states passed choice laws since January.
Yes, those are happening.
So the landscape has shifted. And when we're talking to people in the market, the administrators, we're saying, listen, you better up your game in the sophistication level of your software and stop Google Docsing your way to glory. You need the good stuff. So what would you say to schools today? How do you get in their heads with this awesome software that you sell so they understand what it's doing? And they have to see it, right?
They have to see it. And I think the part that you're putting your finger on is the synergistic piece is of more than one solution coming from the same company, and that's why we're really trying to build a comprehensive offering to comprehensively address both assessment, instruction, and practice in both reading and mathematics primarily. Not that we don't have other content area stuff as well, but reading and math is the center of it. And I love achieving the synergy of it. If we're sitting here, out there is a million companies all hugging. And I was talking with one of our advisory board members the other day, and she said, I don't need like 5 more individual solutions. She's like, there's a million people here. I got my tool. She's like, I need tools that integrate and work together and work smart. So
that makes sense to me. But I would say that Scholastic and Lexi aren't here this year.
Yeah. There's some others.
And
other ones that aren't here.
They had integrated solutions.
Yeah.
Right. But they're not here.
Right.
And there's a reason they're not here. I think you're dealing with a market that the top end 25% of the schools and districts are so mature that they're talking about selective reduction. Right?
Yeah.
Like, let's retire this. We got 16 math apps. Why do we need that many?
Right.
And then you got the mid-tier of the market, right, which all joined the fray with the device for every child during the pandemic. And they've been on a buying spree. And they will continue to be on a buying spree for a little while longer, but then they're going to do the same thing at the mature level, right, which is selectively reduced. So I think you guys have built some of the best in class.
Yeah.
And I would stay with best in class because you're still going to get piecemealed. And then the integration world. Because, first there were retail. Everybody had a store for different things.
Yeah.
And then there were malls.
Yeah.
And then Amazon beat up everybody.
It is a great comparison.
And I think that's where we're at. I think we're getting to the mall stage, but still the bulk of the market's in the retail individual store phase. But they're coming to the mall, and then there's going to have to be an Amazon.
Yeah.
So continue. So my suggestion is, you would continue with best in class. What are your efforts in that area?
Yeah, I think that relates to the recent acquisitions that we've had. So we really, if you look at the offerings we have now, where we really hadn't gone very much was in the instructional piece. And that's why Nearpod was such a huge thing for us. So we're looking at about 18 months ago that came on board. That is, and it's a perfect example of how those things come together and become synergistic. So in our STAR assessments, we have some of the most widely used assessments in the world. But then the minute a teacher finishes an assessment, the thing they'll say is, well, do you have anything that'll help with that? Like you've pinpointed this skill.
Now I got this problem. Thanks a lot.
What do I do? Solve the problem. and that's why. So we released back to fall a STAR to Nearpod connection. So when a teacher is planning for a kid or a group or a class, they can immediately jump from their STAR record book into targeted Nearpod lessons. And I was presenting it to a group of educators just a couple of weeks ago in California, and applause. I've never had, people are like, yay, that's a great product feature, but to applaud about, because it's so simple and it's so elegant, but it goes right to the heart of the issue the teachers are dealing with every day. The range in classrooms, and we're never going to advance education if we can't tame the planning beast. The average teacher is spending 8 to 10 hours a week planning, and we want them to differentiate more.
Let me just correct you on that. Our national survey found the average teacher is spending upwards of 20 hours a week. So you get, because you get more than the category planning, you got the category of finding.
Yeah.
Then the scope and sequencing planning, but then you got the traffic. So the traffic is what do you study, what does he study, what does everybody study, and then getting pelted with questions. In the digital sphere is very different than the analog sphere, where they just raise their hand and talk to you, right? Now it's like email back and forth, text back and forth, in the LMS text back and forth. It is overwhelming teachers.
Yeah.
Because they didn't shift to digital by automating and using the good stuff. They did it in an analog digital way, which is that's just
catching
poor
up,
practice. So it's worse than you think. I'm sorry to say.
No, and I'd love to say that. I think too, regardless of what the number is, and then you realize, for teachers, because they have kids, those hours, where are those going to come in? Before school, after school, nights and weekends. To get that job done, and then we want them to differentiate and personalize and go further and.
Give me a break.
Until we can, like you said, take that ability to plan and find the resources, deliver them, collect the information from them. And again, that's where the Nearpod piece is. With those lessons, you've got the embedded formative assessment right there. So I can jump from an assessment result to an instructional piece that I'm delivered. Then I get feedback from how that went and create that circle and create that loop, which is so powerful.
Yeah. And I love that. And I believe that every teacher should have the flexibility to do all these alternate things, but I'm also a huge proponent now of a viable curriculum map.
Absolutely.
Like lay down the train tracks. We had that in the textbook days, and then you supplement it, right? Video here, discussion project, blah blah. And we ripped that all away from people, and we've had every teacher in America duplicating the work of every other teacher in America, building everything, which is a ridiculous extreme of poor efficiency and idiocy on a grand scale unlike any ever seen before. And I want them to lay down the tracks. And I want them to use best in class. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to shout it. because otherwise what you end up with is teachers quitting because they're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that to them. They're cute.
Yeah.
And they're nice. And they like kids like I do. So, like, let's be nice to them back and give them the good stuff.
Right.
Like Renaissance.
Well, and, with a Nearpod, the whole thing is curated resources. So, I mean, if you read the providers in those, and then we also add the ability for schools to have their own school library. So if a district wants to say, okay, you've got all these great Nearpod resources, but we want to target our teachers to this subset, they can create their own school library.
Well, they're always going to need that because every state has to teach their own state's history, and nobody's
going to have those pieces.
Nobody's going to have those. So it's a whole different scenario.
Yeah.
What I'm really interested in is these other areas, and I'm going to ask your thoughts about this because you're one of the steering people at your company, is that I find that the history side and a little bit some of the science side is left outside the courseware world. It's all piecemeal.
Yeah, it's accurate.
Where do you think that's going to go?
Well, I think with science, we probably have more hope. There are, for example, the next generation science standards move the needle to some degree. So Smithsonian science kits became pieces that a lot of schools were using. And I think that's why providers have struggled is if every state's doing something different, how does anyone develop anything that serves anyone broadly outside of California or Florida or Texas? So I saw the needle move somewhat with the Smithsonian science kits because it became something that was much more standardized. So
and a little bit digital, but not really
a little bit digital.
It was kind of poorly.
But if we developed stuff that supported that, then a lot of schools could use that. I think that
STEM Scope is killing it. Like they got 1,000% growth year on year, but they're not. I don't think they're comprehensive every grade yet.
Right. Yeah. And then the social studies piece not only has always been broad, but has become so politicized now
scary.
as well. It's very
we don't want to be in it.
It's scary for teachers and for providers as well.
Nobody wants to be there. But I think it needs somebody needs to do something about it, right? Because it would also be super interesting to do digitally. Like you could like have interactive maps of Civil War battlefields. I know that because I drove up here from Arkansas to get to this conference, and I had to go through a lot of the towns where they're famous, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, there was a battle here.
Yeah, you heard that in history.
Blah blah blah. Right? It's super awesome. Well, these are good thoughts. What are your other thoughts? Like, what else do we need to know from you?
Yeah, I mean, I think just for us right now, it's just an exciting time. A lot of really hard work for our company is kind of coming together with momentum growing. So we're really, like I've been 17 years, I'm probably more excited like right now than I've been almost the whole time. Yeah. And I'm a third generation educator, so it's like teaching's in the blood. I cannot get away from it. I'm torn because I'm simultaneously super excited about what we're doing. I'm also super concerned about all the pressures that teachers face. I mean,
it's unbelievable.
It's like
why are they in the battlefield? Yeah,
we've got to solve some of those problems. I mean, the future of education just broadly, is just rest upon solving some of these problems and just making teachers' lives easier, because otherwise they're going to go somewhere else.
Well, I hope you would communicate that a lot, right? Because I personally have gotten Learning Counsel on the road. To do the events that we've been doing. This was my original vision 10 years ago, so to show it. Because when I talk to a lot of administrators, they've never logged into the good stuff. They've never seen it. They don't understand the dynamics of change that are there from software. They don't get it.
Yeah.
They think in a very analog, flat text way, and they kind of get interactive whiteboards a little bit. But they haven't seen this stuff. Yeah. They don't understand what it's doing. So it's almost like you got to do a whole lot of show and tell. And you got to make them see, like, stop abusing your teachers, get them the good stuff. Yeah. And make them use it despite their protests, because on the other side is a relieved teacher, is a teacher who can go home at night and not obsessively, fail to sleep, right? Because they're freaked out about the next day's lesson. They can live. Yeah. Like, you have to get on board with the real change that we're in. Yeah, so hopefully you're saying that. But this has been fun.
No, I appreciate it. And, I think, the science of reading is kind of bringing people together and reading. Maybe we'll go down a science of math route. I know, and you all had a great article on the science of learning. I appreciate your article, because that's, we've got to look at and talk about, we've learned things from cognitive scientists that tell us how the brain works and how kids learn. We've got to bring those things in, or we're teaching in brain antagonistic ways, which doesn't sound like a great way to be doing it.
Yeah, how dumb is that? That's so super dumb.
I mean, we didn't know what we didn't know, but now we know, so now we can do better.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with that.
Yeah, it's a fun field.
Who knew we'd be in, what year is it, 2023, and talking about how you learn still and in the different subject areas? This is fascinating.
It is.
Like, who knew?
And we know more.